The world is full of good people, really. But these days, it's not common for people to help others without expecting something in return. We usually look out for ourselves first and only help others if it doesn't inconvenience us. But there are still acts of selfless kindness out there, if we pay attention to the little things in life. The story we're about to tell you is about noticing these small acts of kindness and not judging people by their appearances. It reminds us to believe in the goodness of people, even those we don't know. So let's keep an open mind and look for these moments of kindness in everyday life. Life is about more than just making money and climbing the career ladder. Samantha had been working as a waitress at a coffee shop in Montana for 8 years. Even though she was now 30, her job hadn't changed much. It wasn't the perfect job, but she didn't mind. She actually liked being a waitress and even talked to her boss about taking over the diner when he retired. However, there were days, especially in May, when she felt frustrated. Being a waitress didn't pay much, but it was enough to live on and pay her bills. Samantha was single and had been in a few short-lived relationships. She was comfortable being on her own and enjoyed spending time with family and friends where she felt like it. However, her solitary nature and low expectations for life made her seem reserved to others. People who knew her well were used to her sarcastic remarks and lack of humor. This made her difficult for customers to deal with, and someone even gave her the nickname the Sad One. She knew about the nickname but didn't say anything and just kept working. One of the reasons Samantha had a bad reputation was because she often complained about customers who didn't spend much but stayed for a long time, taking up a table that could be used by other customers. She would try to make these customers uncomfortable so they would leave sooner. It was a habit Samantha had developed over the years. She believed that customers who spent more benefited the business the most and were more likely to leave a generous tip. This unjustified belief fueled rumors that she was stingy and only interested in making extra money. Samantha's daily routine was always the same. She never tried anything new and liked it that way. She would wake up at 6 in the morning to be the first at the coffee shop, shower, have coffee and toast for breakfast, put her hair up, and walk to work. This routine continued until one day, something unexpected happened that shook her out of her routine and sparked a new feeling. One day, a 10-year-old boy named Carl came into the coffee shop and sat at a table. Despite his young age, he seemed confident but sad, waiting patiently for Samantha to serve him. Seeing him, Samantha felt upset, thinking that customers like him wasted her time and didn't bring much profit to the business or her tips. She thought to herself, he's too young to be here alone. He probably doesn't have much money. I'll serve him quickly and try to make him leave. Samantha approached the table with a serious expression, thinking that her job was to serve paying customers, even if they didn't spend much. She often argued with her boss about this, but followed his orders without complaint. Sam walked over to the table and put a glass in front of the boy's face. She did it roughly, and when the boy looked at her in surprise, she just stared at him with an angry look on her face while holding a pen in one hand and the order book in the other. Her intention was to intimidate the boy as much as she could, but she didn't succeed. He remained calm with a slight smile on his lips and asked her, "Good morning, miss. Could you tell me what the price is of a large ice cream?" The tone of his voice denoted innocence and sweetness, something Sam couldn't overlook. Still, she refused to be persuaded and remained as serious as she had at the beginning. Sam cleared her throat, trying not to look him in the eye, and said, "The price of our XL ice cream is 50 cents. The tone of Samantha's voice was cold and cunning, but the boy paid no attention to her. Carl was quiet for a few seconds. He seemed to be deep in thought and looked down as he whispered in a very low voice. He seemed to be counting. Samantha thought she heard him making mental calculations, but she couldn't hear him well. A few moments later, the boy looked up at her again and asked, this time about the price of a smaller ice cream. "Excuse me again, but could you tell me the price of a small ice cream?" The boy asked with the same sweetness and smiling face as before. Samantha began to get impatient at the boy's insistence. However, the way he was talking to her and looking at her prevented her from being more unpleasant, and she had to bite her tongue as she watched her queue forming at the dome. She was wasting too much time attending to a single child. She wanted to finish as soon as possible and leave to attend to the rest of the customers. The waitress caught her breath and answered him again, rather impatiently. "A regular ice cream costs 35 cents. Do you think you can afford it? There's no more ice cream on our menu." "I warn you, I'm telling you in case you were thinking of asking the price of another ice cream," Samantha told him, losing her nerves a little before the boy's passive attitude and his slowness to decide which ice cream to have. But Carl didn't seem to mind. After several seconds, which seemed like an eternity to Samantha, the boy finally decided to order a small ice cream. "Take it easy, miss. I won't ask any more questions. I know what I'll have. I want a small ice cream, that's all. Thank you for taking care of me," told her in a tone of voice just as sweet and innocent as at the beginning of the conversation. Then the boy returned her menu with a smile and folded his arms at his table to wait for his ice cream. Samantha was very surprised by the boy's attitude, but she was too busy to think about it. She wanted to finish her order as soon as possible and start serving the other people who kept coming into the cafeteria. A few minutes later, she returned with the small ice cream he'd ordered and the bill on a tray. She left it on the table where the boy was still waiting and left without saying anything to him. After leaving the boy at his table with the ice cream, Samantha quickly began to attend to the other people who wanted some. However, she couldn't help but look back at the table to see what he was doing. The boy and his attitude had aroused a lot of curiosity in Sam, a totally unusual feeling for her and one she wasn't used to dealing with. As she looked towards the table, she could see how the boy had his ice cream, quietly left the money for the bill on the tray, and left without saying anything. She didn't know why, but Sam expected the boy to turn around once again and say goodbye with the same kindness and gentleness with which he'd spoken to her before. But it didn't happen. She decided not to give it another thought and get on with her work. In the end, Samantha was relieved that the boy hadn't stolen too much of her time and she was able to attend to the rest of the customers without a problem. Afterwards, she went straight to the table where the boy had been eating his ice cream and picked it up quickly, preparing for the next customers. But as she did so, something caught her attention on the table. She found something that moved her deeply and made her feel incredibly sad, and worse, it made her feel like a bad person. It can't be, the waitress said to herself, trying to clear her thoughts and without finishing assimilating what just happened. On the tray next to the ice cream, the boy left her a tip. It can't be, the waitress said to herself, trying to clear her thoughts and without finishing assimilating what just happened. On the tray next to the ice cream, the boy left her a 15-cent tip and had given her the rest of the money he had. How incredibly kind and sweet. Samantha was surprised and stopped to think about what the boy had done. Throughout their conversation, he had been asking about ice cream prices so he could save money to tip her later, not because he couldn't afford a larger size. She realized how wrong she had been to treat him unkindly. Tears filled her eyes as she thought about it more. The boy had given up his own ice cream to give her a tip, something no one had ever done for her before, not even friends or family. Despite her bad behavior, he had thought of her and wanted to reward her work by sacrificing his own money to give her a tip. After that day, Samantha deeply reflected on her behavior towards customers, especially towards a young boy like Carl, who was only 10 years old. She felt bad for how she had treated him and realized that her bad mood and distrust were not helping anyone, especially not herself. The next day, she tried to be nicer and waited for Carl to return so she could thank him. A month later, Carl came back to the coffee shop and sat at a table. Samantha quickly went to serve him, and he ordered the same thing as last time, still friendly and smiling. As Carl finished his ice cream and prepared to tip her again, Samantha kindly asked him not to. "You don't need to give me another tip. I really appreciate it, but I don't deserve it. When you were here a month ago, I didn't treat you well. I'm sorry for that," Samantha explained gently. She was nervous and her hands were shaking a little. Carl looked at her with a curious expression but smiled and said, "I remember you, Miss Samantha. My name's Carl. You don't have to apologize. We all have bad days. My mom always tells me to appreciate other people's work, no matter what it is. That's why I left you a tip and thanked you for the delicious ice cream." Samantha was overwhelmed by Carl's kindness. She couldn't hold back her tears and said, "You're an angel, Carl. Thank you for your kindness and for seeing the good in me. Your mother raised you well." Carl reassured her, "You're kind too. You have nothing to apologize for. I left you a tip because I felt it was right, and I'll do it again." After that day, Samantha and Carl became friends. Samantha learned to be kinder to others, and with her boss's help, they started Ice Cream Mondays to give free ice cream to children who couldn't afford it. Everyone now spoke highly of Samantha, and her friendship with Carl helped her see the importance of people over money.